What is up, guys, and welcome back to another Grimlock video. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and if you are and you like what you're about to see, please make sure to drop a like, a sub, and comment down below. Absolutely insane, guys. We're getting right into it. We are going over each and every specialization for the patch 10.2.7 and placing them where I think they belong in terms of how good they are in arenas, solo shuffle, battlegrounds, dueling, any form of PvP, but mainly arena and solo shuffle, especially as this is following the AWC. And yeah, we're gonna place them where we think they belong. I think everything. There's a lot of things going on right now in the AWC, guys. It's absolutely insane. This is a wonderful tournament, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. But yeah, let's get right into it. Alrighty, guys, so to start things off, we're going to start with tanks, just to get them out of the way. Guys, if you PvP and you're trying to get into PvP and you're used to tanking, you might want to start with rated battlegrounds, because that's basically the only place they're anywhere sort of viable in PvP. Even in dueling, they're not that great, I would say. I mean, they're pretty much immortal in duels, but they're also a tank, so it's, you know, it's not really entertaining for anybody involved. But yeah, I would say probably Prot Warrior is on the lowest end of the tanks. It's super bad in PvP. It has probably like some of the worst utility for PvP, at least from what I've seen. I haven't seen a lot of Prot Warriors this patch, I will say. I don't think I've seen any. But just from past seasons alone, Prot Warrior's not that great. I will say Blood Death Knight actually has potential to be in like E tier. It's not terrible, and in Arena it could technically play with some classes like maybe even Hunter or like a Devastation Evoker or something like that, which would be obnoxious to play against, I will say, but it is possible. So, you know, there is that. Let's see, what other tanks we got? We got Prot Paladin. I don't think Prot Paladin's that great. It is also kind of weird, especially in solo shuffle. It queues as like a healer, which is kind of strange. So it's not like the other tanks where they take up a DPS slot. For some reason, when you queue as a Prot Paladin, you queue only into other Prot Paladins in solo shuffle. So that's really awkward. But yeah, that's where Prot Paladin belongs, in my opinion. Guardian Druid. I mean, they actually do decent damage, low key. But I think they're worse than Blood, because Blood DK has a lot of like actual utility. Like you can provide AMS to your teammate, you have your grips, you still have blind, you have silence, you have things that are good standard Death Knight kit abilities while playing Blood. So I think Guardian's probably better. And then we got Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now Vengeance Demon Hunter actually does have a lot of control, but its damage is like okay. It's kind of lacking. Is probably one of the best rated battleground tanks, in my opinion, because of how much mobility it has. And also just its own self-sustain is really high as well. I'll probably place it... it's hard to say. I'll probably place it above Blood Death Knight, just because of its mobility alone. When you're going to be playing tanks, like I said, you're most likely going to be playing rated battlegrounds. I will say Bear Druid in rated battlegrounds is probably one of the best flag carriers in the game. And they're also amazing at holding capture points, because they can just spam swipe or whatever they press. I think it's swipe that they just press, and they can just spam that on a flag and it'll never be capped, which is really nice. What else we got? Brewmaster. Brewmaster is actually not terrible, but it's not great. I'd say it's probably like... It got nerfed recently, so it's not ideal. That's for sure. It's definitely not ideal in any way. But I think that's our tanks, right? It's just 6, right? Let me just take a little quick gander. Okay, yeah, no, that's our tanks. So yeah, I think that's a fair placement. I mean, E tier is nothing to be proud of either, ladies and gentlemen. I will say that. I will say, if you're talking like tanks and you're just rating tanks, Guardian Druid probably goes to A or S tier in terms of rated battlegrounds, as well as like Blood Death Knight is probably A tier and Vengeance Demon Hunter is probably S tier. It's pretty equal, but everything else is kind of trash. So yeah, now that we got tanks over, sorry guys, sorry. I know that was the first like 3.5 minutes, but you know, we got to talk about them. Somebody's got to talk about them. We can't just place them all in F tier. People got to recognize that tanks do exist. There is people out there that enjoy playing these specializations. God bless you. I don't know how you do it, ladies and gentlemen, but either way, let's get into the real stuff. Okay, guys, we got Arms Warrior. Now, Arms Warrior is okay. I don't think it's amazing. Realistically, I think I'm going to place Arms Warrior B tier for right now. It could be an A tier. It's definitely not S tier. If it was an A tier, it would be significantly low in A tier. Now, I'm considering S tier like the pinnacle of specializations, right? Like, when you watch the AWC and you think, what's S tier? You got to be talking about Demon Hunter and Boomkin, right? Like, those are the best classes in the game. There's no doubt. Demon Hunter can go with a lot of things that it used to not be able to go to because it's just so goddamn good. But Arms Warrior is nowhere near that, so I'm going to place it in B tier, at least for now. We might swap things up as we go, but either way, B tier. Reason being is I think Arms Warrior is just like, it's just lacking in comparison to some of these higher like tier classes like Demon Hunter or something like even a Windwalker Monk. I think a Windwalker Monk is even better than an Arms Warrior personally. So yeah, there's that. Fury Warrior is probably even lower than Arms Warrior. I will say Fury Warrior does some ridiculous damage. And there's actually quite a lot of builds you can play on Fury Warrior, which makes them incredibly fun to play because you can kind of swap around between your builds, whether you're running like Ravager or something like that. So I will say, I think Fury Warrior, it's probably like C tier really, but I'll place it in C tier for now. It's not that great. It's not that bad either. I think if you play like something like Fury Warrior Ret Paladin or Fury Warrior Unholy DK in arenas, you'll probably find some moderate success as that composition. It does have a lot of damage, and Slaughterhouse is a huge Mortal Strike effect that's consistently up, which is really nice. Let's see, we got Assassination Rogue, another really good class, actually. Assassination Rogue has skyrocketed in terms of usage. A lot of people are using an area of effect build that does ungodly amounts of damage. I mean, you're talking like 150 to 180k DPS sustained AoE, so not too bad. And also they have a lot of control. They have Garrote Silence, and if you're playing Indiscriminate Carnage, I think it's like when you Garrote from stealth or something like that, and for 10 seconds after breaking stealth, you AoE everything with the Garrote. So in one global, you can silence 3 people if they're stacked, which is pretty nice. You know, I'm not going to lie. So I think Assassination Rogue probably belongs in high B. We're going to place it in high B for now. I won't place it in A. Sub-Rogue has fallen off a little bit, and I'll explain why. So Sub-Rogue specializes in when you can lock down a whole team and you can kill somebody in a stun. And currently, with the way things have scaled, it's really, really hard for a Sub-Rogue on its own to kill something in its own stun path like 100-0 by itself. You need everything to go right for you, and like at the highest level of gameplay, that just never happens. So Sub-Rogue is really hard. A lot of things are just focused on like doing as much damage as possible all the time. So like it's just become like a PVE game mode almost. Like we're treating other players like we're raid bosses and we're just slamming everybody with damage. So you'll notice in like their AWC, it's like when people get hit with micro CHC, it's like when they hit 50% health, you get hit with a 4-second stun, that forces a cooldown. It's not like you engage with a 4-second stun, which is what Sub-Rogue does. Sub-Rogue engages with a stun and tries to whittle people down. It doesn't like catch somebody in a stun because they don't do a lot of damage. So yeah, I would say Sub-Rogue is struggling in this patch. It's still Rogue though, so at the end of the day, it can't be that bad, right? Still one of the best classes for a rated battleground in my opinion. It's good for skirmishing. It's really good in duels. You could focus on getting a lot of cooldowns with Sub-Rogue, so it's still not bad, just not amazing. So I'm going to place it a step above Fury, and it's going to be in C tier for right now. Outlaw Rogue. I will say Outlaw Rogue is insanely good at cleaving. It does a lot of area of effect damage. It also has a lot of utility. It provides its teammate every single time it rolls the bones, I think like 12% haste. It's insane. There's some like you basically give yourself a PI and your teammate a PI or your teammate a PI every 30 seconds for 8 seconds. It's pretty insane. So and they have Adrenaline Rush up like all the time. Because I think as long as you have Shadow Dance, Stealth, or Subterfuge active, now quote me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. I don't play Outlaw Rogue. I think your Adrenaline Rush has an unlimited duration, something like that. So if you utilize it properly, you have Adrenaline Rush up for like a minute straight. It's pretty insane. And then also you reset cooldowns faster. Outlaw Rogue is really good. I'm going to put Outlaw Rogue at A tier. I think it's significantly better than every other tier, like every other class we've put up so far. Just because it has a lot of utility, and the utility it provides is really strong. I mean, it's not like minor levels of strong. It's really strong. Also, Outlaw Rogue is insanely hard to kill because they reset their cooldowns really fast. So, you know, you might force cloak, but then the next go they have a vanish, and then the next go they have like an evasion, and then they have cheat death. Even if you get through those, it's really hard to kill them, and they reset the cooldown so fast. It's just unbelievable. So yeah, Outlaw Rogue is really good right now. A tier for sure. Marksmanship Hunter. Now, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I didn't think Marksmanship Hunter was that great until I watched Trill and I watched Casu play Marksmanship Hunter in the AWC. They're absolutely insane at the class. First off, that is a disclaimer, right? Yeah, they're insane at Hunter, which is crazy because Trill like never plays Hunter, but they're crazy at Hunter. So I will say that does kind of sway my opinion a little bit. For the average player, it might not be true, but I think Marksmanship Hunter is probably like high B tier. It just does so much damage, and if you're ever in line of a Marksmanship Hunter, you're pretty much going to be losing massive percentages of your health. I mean, I'm talking like 30 to 40% of your health gone in a second. Like, boom, just disappearing. So I do think Marksmanship Hunter is really good. It's really hard to play, though. So I will say, if you're new to playing Marksmanship Hunter, you'll probably just get dumpstered on a couple times until you get used to the flow of things. You really have to be proactive with your cooldowns as Marksmanship Hunter, too. It's kind of like Devastation in the Evoker, in the sense that if you get caught up in the stun, you kind of die if you don't preemptively press something. So there's that. So you have to play really smart. But, I mean, I guess a lot of specs are like that, realistically. Also, the other thing about Marksmanship Hunter is a lot of its damage is physical damage. So things like Blessing of Protection and obviously Bubble, you know, anything that blocks physical damage itself will block a Marksmanship Hunter, whereas a lot of things do magic damage nowadays. And so a lot of things benefit from just doing pure magic damage, whereas Marksmanship is kind of locked under being a physical damaging class. It doesn't. I think Arcane Shot is its only magical damaging thing, and it still hits ridiculously hard. It's like 150k sometimes, but still, that's its only magic damaging thing. We got Survival Hunter. Survival Hunter is another one of those classes where it's like it does a lot of damage, but it's really hard to deal with. I'm gonna actually put Survival Hunter in low B. I don't think it's anywhere close to these. It's hard to say that it's better than Sub Rogue, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I do think it is better than Sub Rogue, though. I feel like you can play Survival Hunter with a lot of comps, and people just don't play it a lot, like Survival Hunter Cupid Cleave, or even Survival Hunter like Unholy Death Knight. That's a very good comp as well. But it's hard to pick Survival Hunter over things like Beast Mastery and Marksmanship because they're so much easier to play. I think Survival Hunter is so tricky to play, it's really hard. Huge shout out to okay, if anybody knows, is it Bicmex or is it Bismex? I have no clue. I want to be corrected on it, and I want to be able to pronounce his name, but he's insane at Survival Hunter. And also Jelly Beans, of course. But yeah, Bicmex, insane Survival Hunter. So if you guys want to play Survival Hunter, check out Bicmex. Crazy good hunter, and he streams a lot, so go check him out. Beast Mastery Hunter. Now, this is probably one of the easiest damaging classes in the game, in my opinion. It's okay. It struggles a lot versus a lot of heavy root classes, so things like Boomkin or Shamans, which Resto Shaman's really good right now. Even Preservation Evoker because of Landslide, Devastation Evoker because of Landslide. There's just numerous classes that deal with AoE controlling the pets passively that Beast Mastery struggles, but outside of that, it does pretty good raw damage. I don't think it's anywhere close to as good as Marksmanship Hunter. I will say it's a lot easier to play than Marksmanship Hunter, though. So if you're picking up Hunter for the first time and you want to get into PvP, highly suggest playing Beast Mastery Hunter. It's really easy to just sit back and let your pets do a lot of the work. You just press Kill Command, you press Barb Shot, you keep up 3 stacks of the Barb Shot buff so that you have a ridiculous amount of haste on your pets, I think, or like attack speed or something like that. It like builds up Frenzy, I think it's called. Either way, yeah, Beast Mastery is good, but it's not that great. I would actually put Beast Mastery, I think I'm going to put it in low B just because it's so easy to play, but at a high tier level, I think it's worse than the other 2 specs personally. Like it's probably worse than Survival. It's just Survival's a lot harder to play. You know what I'm saying? I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying. So like from a 1600 point of view, Beast Mastery could be A tier because it's so easy to play and you just do a lot of free damage. But from like a 2400 plus player point of view, Beast Mastery is definitely the worst hunter spec, in my opinion. I think Survival is better. It just does a lot more burst damage. The only problem with Survival is a lot of your burst damage comes from Explosive Shot, and Explosive Shot can be dispelled, but you can play around that too. So like you can force a dispel early, an explosive shot, or you can even explosive shot to force a dispel and then get a full freezing trap, stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's different mind games in the Hunter game universe. Not that I play Hunter, but I know your guys' antics, okay? But now we're getting into the real class, ladies and gentlemen. We got Havoc Demon Hunter. This is easily an S tier class. By far the most damage in the game consistently, I think. I don't think anything competes with it. Nothing. I mean, if you're watching the AWC, literally Existence will be at like 40 million damage, and the next highest person will be at like 26 million. It's absurd how much consistent damage, and that's not even pad. Like, that's not pad against pets. That's like just raw, unadulterated damage that Existence is doing. And same thing for like Pikaboo. Pikaboo is actually really good at Demon Hunter. Shout out to him too for picking up Demon Hunter and getting as good at it as he is. Holy moly, I'm speaking too fast for myself. I'm trying to get through this video. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, Havoc Demon Hunter, an absolute menace in PvP in general. So yeah, I'm going to say Havoc Demon Hunter is definitely S tier. It does so much damage. It has a really good utility with Netherwalk, Blur, got Darkness. It has an Imprison that's basically a Cyclone, but it's under Incap. Like, it's under like the Polymorph DR, which is crazy, because it pairs really well with, obviously, like classes like Destrolock and Boomkin, and it also pairs really well with classes like Paladin. Shout out to DH Ret Pally. Apparently that's like a crazy comp coming up in the ranks, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, absolute menace of a class. It's really good right now, and it does so much raw damage. It's really hard for people to heal through, and it's actually really easy to do its damage as well. So yeah, S tier for sure. Definitely a good class. Feral Druid. Feral Druid's pretty good. We've seen a decent showing in the European AWC from, what is that, Streamer Zone? With their jungle cleave. Absolutely insane. I mean, to be fair, they're probably the best jungle cleave in the world, so it's kind of hard to judge Feral based off of that. The playstyle for Feral right now is pretty lame in my opinion, though, I will say. You're basically just spamming Cyclones, and then once you land a Cyclone, it's like you do damage. If you don't land that Cyclone, you don't do a lot of damage. And even when you do a lot of damage, it's okay. It's not like ungodly, unhealable. I mean, it is pretty good. You can get like 300k bites and stuff, but nothing major, in my opinion. Nothing game-breaking like Demon Hunter is. I will say Feral, in my opinion, is probably... It's definitely on... I think Sinrogue is better than Marksmanship Hunter now I'm looking at it. I think Feral is under Arms Warrior, but probably above Survival Hunter in B tier. So not too bad. We got our first healer coming up here, which is Resto Druid. I think Resto Druids are okay. They're pretty good. They run out of mana fast, and there's a lot of Preservation Evokers out there right now, and Preservation Evokers absolutely run over Resto Druids. You know why? Because they have Fire Breath Purge, and every 30 seconds, you're AoE purging off their entire team full of hots, so then the Druid has to reapply all their hots, and by the time they reapply all your hots to them, in like 10 seconds you get it AoE purged again. It's absolute nightmare for Resto Druid to deal with. So I think that alone, the counter that Preservation provides to Resto Druid is really bad. But other than that, Resto Druid's throughput healing is insane. The problem is its throughput healing can only last so long before it runs out of mana, and then you just lose the game. So with Resto Druid, you're kind of running on this like endless loop of, will we win the game fast enough? And if we don't, we're going to lose unless if I get a million drinks. And it kind of plays very similar to a Mistweaver playstyle. What Caster Mistweaver? Let's specify that. Not Fistweaver, but Caster Fistweaver or Caster Mistweaver plays very similar to Resto Druid in the sense you need to get drinks periodically throughout the game in order to last as long as you need to. Because a lot of the time games run anywhere from 4.5 to 7 minutes now, at least at a high tier. 4.5 to even 9 minutes, and that's just not the move for Resto Druid, which is funny because previously in other seasons, Resto Druids used to thrive in dampening, in my opinion. They used to be able to get to dampening really easily. They used to play rock comps like LSD, obviously, like Elemental Shaman, Aflock, Resto Druid, a classic age-old comp, and they just can't get to that point anymore because Resto Druid ooms so fast. So I don't know who at Blizzard needs to hear this, but you got to fix Resto Druid's mana regen, I think. Okay? So either way, I'm going to place Resto Druid at the B tier just for right now. I think it's okay. It does a lot of throughput healing. Still probably one of the best healers for 2v2 arenas. I don't know how it plays in rated battlegrounds, but I can't imagine it's great in rated battlegrounds, honestly, because you have to spread your HOTS so much. I don't think there's an easy way to spread your HOTS besides just clicking one person, putting HOTS on them, clicking the next person, putting HOTS on them, which sounds like an absolute nightmare in rated battlegrounds, honestly. So, especially if you're running into a preservation evoker, which I'm sure you will in rated battlegrounds. But either way, we're moving on to Boomkin, and this is our other S tier class, in my opinion. I think Boomkin's insane. It just has such a like rage timer built into Incarnation, where when you press Incarnation, that beam of death comes out and you just start to pop off and just do insane damage. I mean, I'm talking about, 250k to 300k star surges on the regular, and then on top of that, you have the orbital strike, which also did 200k, and then you have your dots rolling, and you have multiple instant cast crowd control with bash, root beam. You have Bear Charge Beam. Shout out to Nick. Absolutely insane play in the AWC, by the way. If you guys aren't watching the AWC, you really should. This AWC has been something special. It's been absolutely insane. But yeah, so Boomkin's absolutely crazy, in my opinion. I think it's super high tier. It might even be, I think it's actually technically the best class in the game, so I'll put it above Demon Hunter. Cyclone's just such a strong cooldown, such a strong crowd control that realistically... I mean, even just because of how it plays, it's like, if you get kicked on Cyclone, you can still cast Star Surge, you can still cast Starfire, you can still cast Moonfire, so you still have things to do when you're casting the best crowd control in the game, which is really, really hard to deal with. And, not to mention, Boomkins, for some reason, are absolute monster truck tank level when they're in bear form. Like, they're so hard to kill. They get so much armor, so physical classes like Marksmanship Hunter, Arms Warrior... Outlaw Rogue, it's super hard to kill them because all your damage is physical and you're hitting into extra armor, and that extra armor provides you with so much that you're actually taking like a significant amount of damage, like less than you would normally take. And on top of that, if you like pre-bear form, you have Frenzy Regen, which is crazy. That's like a massive heal. You have Renewal, which becomes a massive heal while in bear form because it goes off your percentage of health. And obviously when you're in bear form, your health gets a lot larger. So yeah, Boomkin's just an absolute monster of a class right now. And I think it'll remain that way. It's been that way for a long time. And I'm not really sure if they're going to fix that or just bring other classes to its level. And I think they should just bring other classes to its level. I'm not going to lie. I find it really fun to play really strong classes. So I don't know what to say, guys. I think Boomkin's insane. Frost Death Knight. Now, Frost Death Knight, everybody always places it low. And I'll tell you, I'll be real honest with you guys. The reason why they place it low is because it's a setup-based class. It's not fun to play against. And people honestly don't really find it too fun to play. I love playing Frost Death Knight, and I love playing with Frost Death Knights. I don't exactly like playing against Frost Death Knights. And Frost Death Knight's goes are really easy to like kind of manipulate and manage your way around where it's not too difficult to deal with them on average. It depends on the Death Knight. I mean, obviously, if you're fighting against Zeke, he's been playing Frost Death Knight for years now. So he's like a master at the class and master at how you are supposed to get setups, and people just don't expect the way he plays it. So it's really good in his hands. Now, in a normal player's hands, it's also not bad because it's really easy to do damage with, but to get at a high level with it, it's really hard because you have to get good at setting up with it, in my opinion. So I think Frost Death Knight is probably like a low C tier, realistically. It might even be better than Fury Warrior, in my opinion. It's definitely not better than Sub Rogue, though. I do think it's better than Fury Warrior, not because it does more damage or anything, but because it's very consistent. And Fury Warrior seems to fall off for certain classes, whereas Frost Death Knight, you can kind of play around other classes and work your way into, like... So, for instance, you're fighting against a class that has a disarm. It's really easy to just set up on that class, and then they can't disarm you because the whole go, they're getting stunned and blinded and, you know, X, Y, and Z. So it's really hard to deal with a Frost Death Knight without utilizing your own cooldowns, which is good, because the whole point of a Frost Death Knight is to just force cooldowns, and then your teammates normally run them over, which is why it pairs really well with Devastation Evoker, and Frost Death Knight also pairs really well, in my opinion, with classes like Windwalker Monk or even like a Ret Paladin or an Enhancement Shaman. Shout out to Toxicant and Big Damn. Thank you for one-shotting my healer like 3 times in a row the other day. Love that. Said no one ever. But either way, yeah, shout out to Toxicant. He's an absolute monster on Frost Death Knight. And also Zeke. Obviously, Zeke, huge shout out to you in the AWC. Yeah. So, yeah, Zeke's insane. Frost Death Knight's okay. It's not amazing. He's just really good at it. Unholy Death Knight is a different story. I think Unholy Death Knight does stupendous amount of damage. I'm actually going to place it in A tier. It's definitely not better than Outlaw Rogue, but it is really good. It does so much damage, so much raw pressure. And the problem with it is it's like a lot of its range, actually, because you have Death Coil and you're bursting wounds. You touch a target for 1 second, you APOC them, and there goes 40% of their health sometimes. It's really good. I think Unholy Death Knight has a lot of potential to be really good with the right class. I have seen some people running Unholy Death Knight Boomkin. Also, Unholy Death Knight Demon Hunter DHDK is really good. Probably one of the best ladder climbing comps, in my opinion, because it's just so, like, you run at people and you just keep running at them until they die or you die eventually. And that's kind of nice for a ladder because you don't really have to think, and you could just grind out games and games and games and games and hopefully be winning them because you're doing so much damage with a Demon Hunter and Unholy Death Knight. It's just absurd. So, yeah, I think if you're planning to get into 3v3 Arena and you guys don't know what to play, I would suggest playing either Demon Hunter or an Unholy Death Knight. Both are really easy to get into kind of damage rotation wise. I would look up a guide, obviously, and also gearing. But yeah, you just kind of run at people and they die all game. So that's kind of nice. Devastation Evoker. Now I'm the Devastation Evoker main, ladies and gentlemen. You're at the right place if you like Devastation Evoker. Check out my channel if you haven't already. I mean, dude, Devastation Evoker is like all I do. And I love this class. I think it's stupidly easy to play. A lot of people complain about it. I don't care. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I played at a decent level, okay? A decent level. Not high, not amazing, but a decent level. And I will say, it can be challenging sometimes, okay? You get one shot a lot. Not one shot a lot, but I guess you die really easily. You have 2 shield walls. You have Renewing Blaze, which is okay at best. You have Rescue, which is insane. Rescue is a very good cooldown, in my opinion. And you also have Sleepwalk. So you have, like, okay crowd control. The problem with Devastation Evoker is every other class right now on this list has at least one button they can press where it's an instant crowd control and immediately affects somebody, right? Devastation Evoker does not have that. Devastation Evoker has a root and it has Deep Breath, but Deep Breath is so easily avoidable by so many things. I mean, you got to think, like, Shadow Priest can fade it, Priest in general, sorry, can fade Deep Breath entirely, which is really annoying. You basically have to bait out Fade if you want to get a good Deep Breath, or you have to kick somebody on Shadow to Deep Breath them. So yeah, there's just things that avoid Deep Breath entirely, and that's basically our only actual crowd control besides Sleepwalk, which is an okay crowd control at best. It's nowhere near as good as something like Polymorph Cyclone. I mean, it's probably, okay, sorry. It's actually probably as good as Polymorph in the sense that Polymorph is spammable, but it breaks instantly, whereas Sleepwalk is not spammable, but it doesn't break instantly. So I think it's on the same tier as Polymorph. Fear is a step up above that, and then there's Cyclone, which is just absolutely absurd, right? So you got Cyclone in S tier, you got Fear in A tier, and then you got, like, Sleepwalk and Polymorph in D tier, right? So it's like they're like the worst crowd controls, in my opinion. They're super annoying to use. So that's the problems with Devastation Evoker. It does absurd damage, though. I mean, I'm talking big numbies. So I'm personally going to place Devastation Evoker in A tier. I think it's absolutely insane. Just based on its damage alone, its raw damage is crazy. It's really hard to deal with. And if you get good as Devastation Evoker and you end up playing with something like a Demon Hunter, a Windwalker Monk, an Unholy Death Knight, a Frost Death Knight, there's other classes like Boomkin. You could play with a Mage even. I played last season. I played a lot with a Destro Lock and a Demo Lock, and that was a lot of fun too. So try out new things with Devastation Evoker, but if you want to be safe, obviously you just go Demon Hunter, Devastation Evoker. Who am I kidding, guys? And you just run over everything in your sight. It just does so much unheal. It's the damage you do as Demon Hunter, Devastation Evoker is just so unhealable that it's actually really hard to deal with if you only did damage and nothing else, which obviously you're going to do other things as well. So yeah, I think Devastation Evoker definitely belongs in A tier. We've also seen it quite a bit in the AWC. Not to a lot of success, but to enough success that it says something about the class. Augmentation, however, I don't think is that great. I think Augmentation is probably like low C, maybe D tier. It just doesn't do a lot of damage. Now, I will say it does have potential with the Death Knight. If you have Augmentation Evoker, or even a Demon Hunter technically, maybe even a Windwalker too, but Augmentation Evoker on Holy Death Knight is not that bad because you can still get your setups, and Augmentation Evoker's Eruption actually does pretty good damage. You can hit for like 200 to 300k eruptions, I think, and you can do like an Eruption into an instant cast Living Flame, so in one global you're doing like 500k, which could be pretty good. But it's so not consistent. Like, I mean, you're probably realistically doing like 200Ks most of the time with that combo. So, like, you could do 200K, 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 which isn't bad. I won't say that's not bad, but it's not great. And it's so inconsistent. It does have a little bit more survivability than Devastation Evoker because it has kind of a cheat death effect, and it also has the scales, which the scales are really good because they provide a good absorb. But the absorb isn't amazing. It used to be really good, but now it's blistering scales is like okay at best. But yeah, so that's where I'm going to place augmentation for right now. It does do decent, but it is not amazing. Don't get me wrong, guys. It's not fantastic. It's not like the best. It's better than tanks. Preservation Evoker. I would say this is the third best healer in the game right now. I think Preservation Evoker should be in high A tier. It's pretty good. It does have its quirks. The problem with Preservation Evoker is it has, because you're locked to Drakthir, it has no way to get out of things like Root Beam. So Boom can immediately dumpsters on Preservation Evoker a lot of the time, especially because you can Cyclone Emerald Communion and it stops all its healing, which is ridiculous. So a lot of things get countered really easily, but its raw output healing and its mana is insane. It's really hard to a Preservation Evoker that's playing well, and its actual healing output is disgusting. I mean, you could heal through a lot, like a lot with a Preservation Evoker. I actually swear on my life, guys, I don't know why people aren't playing it, but if you play DH, Ret Paladin, Preservation Evoker, it's going to be really hard to deal with because not only are you like cleaving, which is a Preservation Evoker's like thing. They like playing with cleaves, at least from my experience. But you answer the problems that it's having. So like the problems it's having is like Root Beam. You have freedom for that. Also, like, you know, you're dealing with Boomkin. Demon Hunter Ret beats Boomkin a lot. Stuff like that. Like there's just like answers for a lot of Preservation's problems within Demon Hunter Ret. So I would say Demon Hunter Retribution Preservation Evoker is an insanely good comp, and I'm surprised people aren't playing that. A lot of the times they're playing DH Ret Resto Shaman, which is also really good, but the Resto Shaman itself is pretty susceptible to dying, especially once it runs out of mana, and Preservation Evoker seems to have a better control of mana, in my opinion, than Resto Shaman. Also, I think Preservation Evoker deals with being trained better than Resto Shaman, at least versus other melee cleaves. So if you plan on climbing the ladder, maybe try out DH Ret Preservation Evoker. I feel like it could be really good. Holy Paladin. Now, this is a super underrepresented class. Its denounces can hit for like 250k, which is really nice. But again, it just dies. Like, you can actually just run at a Holy Paladin the whole game. If you're a Demon Hunter, you can literally not look at a single other player and just toss imprisons on like other targets and just run at a Holy Paladin, and it will die in 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 3 minutes. Like clockwork. You'll just run through its cooldowns. It does not matter how much peeling you do. I'm telling you, Holy Paladin dies so fast. It's so easy to just run over this class. So I think Holy Paladin we're probably going to put in C tier. I think it's probably the worst healer in the game right now, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. Maybe... No, yeah, I think it is. I think it's just the worst healer in the game. It does have some potential, and like I said, it does do a little bit of damage. It does have Hodge and a rep, which is really nice. You could also go AoE blind, which is really nice. But a lot of things that Holy Paladin play with, for instance, like Feral Mage, you don't really want to go blind, and rep DR's poly, so it's kind of like, eh. Like, you kind of use rep as like a way to protect yourself. It also has a kick, but like, what class doesn't have a kick? Koth Priest. Priest, you don't have a kick yet, but everything else in the game does. So yeah, Holy Paladin is... it's sadly just not that great. Rep Paladins, however, Retribution Paladins are great, and I think they are high A tier. I would actually place Rep Paladin above Preservation Evoker. I think it's like slightly under S tier. And the reason I say this, now a lot of people are going to say like, dude, Rep Paladins can die. And it's like, can they though? Like, Shield of Vengeance is like insane. It's like a self-life cocoon, and if you break it, you actually take like 250k damage. It's absurd. It's really scary. And it does some of the highest bursts in the game. I mean, you can do a Wake of Ashes that hits for 300k easily into like a Templar's Verdict, and that Templar's Verdict can hit for like 350k, and that's like 2 globals. You just did 700k almost, 650k. Like Ret Paladin's crazy. It also has a lot of utility with Blessing of Sank, has Blessing of Freedom, has Hand of Protection, it has Bubble. It also has that magic Hand of Protection. What do they call that, by the way? I don't know. I've never played Ret Paladin. It's actually the only class I haven't played is Paladin. But yeah, they have a magic bop, which is really annoying. It shares a cooldown with bop though, thank God. It also has Sack, which is really good. And it has its own shield wall, has Shield of Vengeance. It's just a really good overall class. And most of its damage is from a ranged. A lot of people try to argue it's not a range specialization, and it literally has more range on its abilities than Devastation Evoker. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from any of you, okay? Retribution Paladin is a ranged class outside of Crusading Strikes, which also hits for like 150k. Why is that? Why does your auto attack do 150k? What is wrong with your class? I don't want to hear it, Ret Pallies. Get out of here. Your class is insane. It's really good, okay? I don't want to hear it. It's good, except it's not sometimes. So I'll say that. But I think it's pretty insane. With the right composition, it's really good. Disc Priest, it does a lot of damage. I think it's really good in 2v2s. I don't know how it is in RBGs. I can't imagine it's bad. You probably just put a tournament on a lot of people with like Powered Radiance, and then you just burst out damage, right? Like you play like a ranged Fistweaver almost nowadays. So Disc Priest is actually not that bad. But I don't think it's as... I don't know. I think it's a little bit better than Resto Druid, just because Resto Druid ooms so fast, and there's a lot of things that counter Resto Druid right now. It might be a little bit better or a little bit worse than Resto Druid, I'm not sure. I will say having Pain Suppression is really nice, but it's really easy to navigate around, right? Like you Pain Suppression one target, they just swap to the next target and just burst that target down too, and then you're like, oh, I'll just Pain Sup that target, and then they just swap to you, and now you're just dead. So that's the problem with Discipline Priest right now, is it's really, the damage is so high in the game right now, it's really hard to deal with. I will say in 2s, Discipline Priest is really good though. Not too bad, especially with like something like a Hunter or a Demon Hunter, those types of classes. Rogue, it's really good with too. Holy Priest, however, is probably the best healer in the game right now, right next to a Resto Shaman. I mean, it's like a thin line. They're really good, both of them. Depends entirely on composition. I think in EU they kind of prefer Holy Priest, but in NA they kind of prefer Resto Shaman. But we're seeing a bit of both on both sides, so it's a little interesting. I think Holy Priest is really good in my opinion. I think it's high A tier, which is also where I'm going to put Resto Shaman for right now. And basically the reason is Holy Priest you can trade. You have a bubble on a 2-minute cooldown. You just trade that pretty much anytime like Incarnation is up. It's the only way to deal with Incarnation as a Holy Priest. And then, you know, you have your big AoE heal, which is like Divine Hymn. You have Holy Word Serenities, and then you get procs on Holy Word Serenities that make it so that it doesn't use a charge and it costs less mana. So their mana is really good. Their mana management right now is actually really good. It's really hard to like a good Holy Priest. I do think Resto Shaman does Holy Priest though. So if you're playing for dampening, I think Resto Shaman does beat Holy Priest in terms of mana. It's hard to say though. I don't know. Holy Priest is pretty insane. It has a lot of cooldowns to rotate through too. You know, it's got Guardian Spirit, and then every single Holy Word Serenity is kind of like a mini Lay on Hands. You have a lot of instant cast heals, so you don't have to heal that much. I guess you do flash heal, though, when you're under a lot of pressure and in late dampening, which can cause you to faster, which is why, if you notice and you're watching the Holy Priest closely in AWC, early on in the game, they're pressing heal instead of flash heal a lot because they save a lot of mana doing that, because they know the game's going to end up lasting 8 minutes, so outside of cooldowns, instead of pressing flash heal over and over again, a lot of the times they're just pressing regular heal, which is really interesting. But yeah, so Holy Priest is really good. And Resto Shaman is also really good. Both have amazing utility with their buttons, and their mana seems pretty decent. It seems really hard to either one of them. I will say once any healer goes though, it starts to get really stressful and really chaotic, which is really fun to watch. So love seeing that in the AWC. Speaking of which, you guys should go check out because it's live right now. Absolutely insane. Or it was live when this video is posted. It's live right now as I'm speaking. Shadow Priest, it's okay. Don't get it twisted, guys. WizK is the goat of this class. He makes it look good, but this class is okay. I don't think it's amazing. I actually think it's probably like here. It's probably like right under Marksmanship Hunter in terms of goodness, but WizK makes it look like A tier. He's just so good at the class. It's absurd. Also insane that he's really good at ret. But either way, yeah, Shadow Priest is good. It does a lot of damage. It has a lot of like rotations, so like you can avoid things with Fade. If you don't avoid things with Fade, you have Disperse. Disperse is only a 1.5 minute cooldown, which isn't bad. and your character, you just kind of do like a lot of damage with mind games and voids. What is it called? Sorry, what void spike? But mind spike. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Yeah, mind spike, insanity. It does a lot of damage, so you can combo things like that. You know, obviously, like it does a lot of damage, but it's not amazing amount of damage. And it's kind of locked to a set few comps, in my opinion. I don't think it really has a lot of crazy comps. It's got like DH Shadow Priest, which is just because DH is so gross right now. Unholy DK Shadow Priest isn't bad. I mean, Rogue Shadow Priest could work as well. Shout out to like the move, obviously. But other than that, I don't really know what you... Maybe Feral Shadow Priest, Warrior Shadow Priest. You see those? Like Arms Warrior or Fury Warrior Shadow Priest. Feral Shadow Priest, you see that. But that's basically the amount of comps that they have at a high tier. Even at a low tier, it's really hard to play Shadow Priest with a couple of comps. Oh, and Shadow Play. I don't know how I'm missing Shadow Play, but Shadow Play is probably like the most played Shadow Priest comp, which is Shadow Priest Warlock. It doesn't matter what spec of Warlock, whether it's Demonology, Destro, or Affliction. It's all good with Shadow Priest. But those are really like it. And those comps are like... It's kind of hard to do, like, a lot versus people that are playing, like, DH Boomkin. You know, DH Boomkin just absolutely dumpsters on a class like Shadow Priest. So, yeah, that's sadly the case right now for Shadow Priest. It does do a lot of damage, though, and if you enjoy playing a caster, I don't know if I would suggest Shadow Priest, but it is really fun. I enjoy playing Shadow Priest, personally. And in Battlegrounds, it's really fun because you just put dots on everything, and everything starts to rot. And you do a lot of damage because you have a lot of insanity, and you can dump that into Devouring Plague, which is really fun. So it's a fun class. It is a fun class. And you have a stun and a silence, which is really nice, and an instant cast AoE fear. But either way, it's okay at best. It's not amazing. It's not amazing. It's not terrible, though. Windwalker Monk, this is a sleeper-ass class. I don't know why. I'm really surprised we don't see more Windwalker Monk in the AWC right now. It's really good. In my opinion, it's probably right under Outlaw Rogue. Basically, you can 100-0 people in like 3 seconds by yourself, especially if you catch them in the right crowd control. And if you're playing like something like Windwalker Destro Lock, you can literally like paralyze the healer, leg sweep 2 targets. And if there's a Havoc up on those targets, you can leg sweep. You can do your burst, and then out of your leg sweep, your Destro Lock can hit a double coil on those 2 and fear off the paralyzed target. And if you can do that consistently, you'll just win games for free. It's so cakewalk. Now in the AWC, it's a little different. You know, people obviously know how to navigate around these types of things. They know what to expect from different classes. But in your standard ladder play, you know, anywhere from like 1600 to 2K, 2200 even, Windwalker Destro, you'll do fine, I think. It's definitely a Glad-worthy comp. And, yeah, Windwalker's just crazy, man. It's really good. It does so much damage. I mean, my teammate, I play Windwalker Devastation Evoker right now this season. That's all I've played. And I'm like 2200. We were just at 2300 the other day, but then we tanked. But either way, we don't talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. Tanking is not good for the soul. He's hitting like 480k Rising Sun Kicks. Like what? Dude, what is that class? It's crazy. It does a lot of damage. So, yeah. A lot of damage, and it has a lot of utility, and you can kite a lot with it, which is really nice. Also, things like Windwalker DH or like Windwalker Unholy DK, like anything that just does a lot of tunnel damage, you can play pretty well with it. Windwalker Boomkin is also really good. You can para into Root Beam. I'm getting off track. It's a good class. It's a good class. It pairs with a lot right now. Mistweaver. Now, Mistweaver is okay. It runs really fast. If you're playing Caster Mistweaver, you'll be out of mana within the first 2 minutes if you are not going for consistent drinks, which is really annoying to play around for you as a healer. So I will say I think Caster Mistweaver, sadly, is like right next to Druid. I'm going to place it a little above Druid just because Fistweaver is really good with certain compositions, especially for ladder play. But and I think in rated Battlegrounds too, like Mistweaver is probably a lot easier to play and a lot more enjoyable to play than a Resto Druid. So yeah, I think Mistweaver is definitely like B tier. It's not bad. It's just not amazing. And you have to play a comp that runs like really fast ghosts. So something like Devastation Evoker, Frost Death Knight, Mistweaver, not bad. Shout out to Draco Cleave with Zeke and Buddha and Meat Monk. Crazy good Draco Cleave players, obviously. I mean, they basically named the comp. And yeah, you just run so fast. So you have to really play it well. You have to rotate cooldowns well. It's just hard. Whereas like Holy Priest Resto Shaman, It's not that hard. At least at like a very core level, you know, low level to a middle level. It's not that difficult. It's not crazy. Now, I don't play healer, so me saying it's not difficult might mean something else to somebody. But for me, I don't think Holy Priest or Resto Shaman is that hard right now. Okay? Going on to Destruction Warlock. Now, Destruction Warlock is probably still, in my opinion, I think Destrolock is still the best spec of Warlock, personally. We haven't seen a lot of Warlocks in AWC. I think we did see a Destrolock or two. It does hit Chaos Bolt for like 300 to 350k sometimes, which is pretty cool. And it does like 100k with Conflagrate, or 150k with Conflagrate, and like 100k with Incinerate. So it does okay damage. It does pretty good damage. But its control is really where it's at. It has Curses, which is really good. It also has Fear. It has Mortal Coil, but because it's Destro, you can Havoc the Mortal Coil, which is really nice because you get 2 Mortal Coils for the price of 1. It's just really good. So yeah, I would say Destrolock is pretty decent. I'm going to put Destrolock above Marksmanship. I think I'm going to put it below Sinrogue, though. It is pretty good. There's part of me that wants to put Sinrogue in like low A, just because it does so much damage. But I haven't really struggled versus it personally, and I've been playing Devastation Evoker, which is not the tankiest class. It's not the not tankiest class, but I will say it does do really well into Assassination Rogue. The problem is Assassination Rogue struggles a lot versus like Ret Paladins. So there's like certain comps and classes that just destroy you on the ladder. And once you get to a certain point, you're just fighting the same teams over and over again. So say you're playing something really good, or like you think is really good, like Assassination Rogue, Affliction Lock, and then you fight into something like Ret Paladin DH. And then you just get absolutely stomped every single time, because Ret Paladin DH is basically the most raw counter you can have versus Assassination Rogue Affliction Lock. And there's just nothing you can do about it. It's just a comp thing. Like, there's literally nothing you can do about it. You go for a Fear, it gets sanked. You go for a Fear, it might get reverse magicked. You can't ever CC the Demon Hunter because he just has Vengeful Retreat. You do so much damage. And then, anytime you want to put a Death Mark up, you can just bop it off if you wanted. It's pretty absurd. You could do a lot of stuff to counteract Assassination Rogue. So yeah, that would be my main thing. Either way, I don't know why I went on a tangent about Assassination Rogue. Either way, Destrolock is good. It's okay. It's pretty good. Does a little bit of damage, a lot of bit of damage here and there. It has a lot of instant cast crowd control. Okay, it doesn't have a lot of instant cast crowd control, but it has enough that it matters. Affliction Lock, it does actually pretty good damage, but I think it's pretty bad. I'm actually gonna place it like a little above Sub-Rogue, I think. And the reason why I'm placing it above Sub-Rogue is because Sub-Rogue has like 2 comps or 3 comps it could play. And in my opinion, that's like Rogue Mage, Rogue Windwalker, and like maybe Rogue Boomkin. And if you're playing Sub-Rogue with Rogue Boomkin, you'd probably just rather want to be playing Outlaw Boomkin. So yeah, there's that. So I think Affliction is like a step above that. Affliction's okay. It's not bad. It plays really well with Shadow Priest. Just because you don't have, like, you can't really dispel the dots or else you die. So you can just get, once you get your dots rolling, it feels really good. The problem is it has no, like, raw kill potential. Oblivion did just get buffed, and Oblivion is pretty decent right now. I did get hit by an Oblivion for, like, 700k in 2 seconds. Because this was right after it got buffed, and I was like, oh, I don't need to kick that, and then I died. So you do definitely need to kick Oblivion, or it could be a problem if they set it up properly. So I would say Affliction's okay. It does decent damage. But again, it's kind of lacking its own peeling. You know, it has Mortal Coil, but that's it. It doesn't have any other instant cast crowd control. And it doesn't really have a lot of raw instant damage. So a lot of the games, like big hitters right now, in like 3 seconds they can just 100-0 somebody. Whereas Affliction Lock, it's like, you know, in 6 to 9 years you might kill somebody. So, you know, you're rotting people down left and right. I don't think it's bad, but it's just not, it just doesn't fit with the playstyle of the game and the momentum of the game right now, in the sense that, like, you're going for, like, oh, I landed a Paralyze on a leg sweep, let's kill this guy right now. It's more like, yeah, I got full dots applied to their entire team, and I'm just going to AFK and pretend that I'm doing stuff, because that's basically all I'm doing right now. I can crowd control this guy, and then, oh, wait, no, that Fear broke. Let me just go crowd control this guy. Oh, no, that broke because I spread dots to that guy. Oh, wait, they just finally died. So that's basically how Affliction Lock plays. It just doesn't fit the playstyle of the game right now, in my opinion. I think they need to up something. Maybe they need Malefic Rapture to do a little bit more damage, and they need to take a little bit of damage out of their other abilities. I don't know. I have no clue. But all I know is Affliction Lock just doesn't feel right with the meta of the game right now. It needs like more single target damage and less AoE damage, which is weird because it never needed that before. And Affliction Lock is kind of like meant to do AoE damage. It's like all it does is AoE cleave. So it's just weird. It's a weird class. Demo Lock, not bad, not great. I think Demo Lock is probably under Feral right now. Just because it has Axe Toss. It's definitely better in my opinion than Affliction Lock, but it's definitely nowhere near Destro Lock. I mean, it could be, I guess. But Demo Lock is nice because it has like Axe Toss, has an Immortal Coil. Your pets do a lot of the damage, and basically you can just summon all the pets, and then you can kite away if you want. And you can do nothing, and your pets will just start to do a lot of damage for you, and you don't need to be in the action a lot. I mean, you do, though, in order to keep those pets rolling, obviously. It's how Demo Lock plays, but it's kind of like having a bunch of undispellable dots that do a decent amount of damage. And you also have Immortal Strike, which pairs you well with a lot of classes, so you can actually play things like Demo Lock Rep Paladin, or, you know, Demo Lock Devastation Evoker, for instance, or Demo Lock Boomkin, stuff like that. So you can play a lot of, like, out-of-the-norm comps for a Warlock just because you have Immortal Strike. But it's still not amazing. Your damage is relatively low. And if you train a Demo Lock, they do like no damage. It's really hard for a Demo Lock to get off their damage if they're being trained constantly and being kicked constantly, or like interrupted, or they get, you know, stun locked a lot. And I can't even imagine playing a Demo Lock right now into DH Boomkin. Like, playing into a Demon Hunter and a Boomkin as Demo Lock just sounds like an absolute nightmare. It just sounds like you'll just get absolutely swarmed. And it's going to be so hard to get a cast out because you get Fell Eruption, then Chaos Nova, then you get Feared, then you get Cloned Low, and then you get Cloned Low again, and then you end up getting Stunned again, or you get Metal Eater, you get a Fear cast off finally, and the Demon Hunter eventually retreats it or something. So it just sounds really hard to gain any momentum by the time you're like almost dead already as Demonology. So I will say Demonology's not amazing in my opinion, but it's okay. Frost Mage, however, is pretty good. I think Frost Mage is better than Shadow Priest. It's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it does have a lot of raw damage. You can do a lot of big damage with Glacial Spike. You have Frost Bomb, which Frost Bomb can be dispelled, by the way, so you have to watch out for that. So you can bait things like you can Polymorph a target, it gets dispelled, and then you can Frost Bomb that target and swap the Polymorph over to the healer type of thing. You can play like that. There's different ways you can play around Frost Mage, but I will say Frost Mage does pretty good raw damage, and it deals with melee cleaves really okay. I won't say easily, but it deals with like classes like Warrior and Windwalker Monk super easily. It's okay versus Demon Hunter because of the amount of roots you have. And you have so much mobility. Like you can blink and then you can displacement blink, or you can blink and then alter time, displacement, alter time back, and then blink again. So like you can move a lot. You know, you're a lot of back and forth, a lot of crowd control. But decent damage, and it's kind of hard to get off your damage because Frost Mage casts a lot, so if you get kicked on Frost, obviously it is dangerous because you can't Ice Block, so you have to be careful about those kind of things as Frost Mage. But yeah, your damage is pretty insane. Ray of Frost is absurd too. You can actually hit Ray of Frost ticks for like 200k easily right now, so I would say Frost is where it belongs, like mid B tier. It's pretty good, but it struggles into some things, it does really well into other things. Arcane Mage is kind of similar. I don't know how I don't think Arcane Mage is great. And the reason why I don't think Arcane Mage is great is probably because Holy Priest is so good. And it's really hard for you to land crowd control in Holy Priest as Mage in general, let alone Arcane Mage, where you're only casting like Arcane School half the time, so you'll get kicked on it all the time, and it's really hard to deal with. But yeah, I'd say Arcane Mage is like probably a step under Shadow Priest, maybe a step under Arms Warrior even. It's not bad. It does a lot of damage, and you have a lot of like execute damage. I do low-key think like something like Arcane Mage Feral Druid is really good, but again, maybe Frost Mage Feral Druid's just better. I don't know. Arcane Mage is okay though, and it's kind of like watching a cheat code play if you watch Cubsy play it, so I won't even count watching Cubsy play it because Cubsy's just absurdly good at Arcane Mage. So yeah, I think Arcane Mage is okay, but in the hands of a god like Cubsy, it's like A tier. So it's pretty good, but it's not amazing. I also do like that you can get procs of Arcane Orb off of Arcane Barrage, and you can just kind of keep spamming Arcane Barrage. I think that's kind of cool. So there is like gimmicks like that, which I think are neat. But other than that, I don't think Arcane's that great. It's okay. It's definitely not bad, but I like, for instance, if I queue into an Arcane Mage in 3s, I feel a breath of relief as a Devastation Evoker, whereas I queue into a Frost Mage, and I'm like, I'm just going to get rooted over and over again. I'll never be able to Verdant Embrace. I'll never be able to rescue. It's going to be such a nightmare. Whereas Arcane Mage is like, okay, I can deal with this. I have a range kick. I'll just kick him on Arcane Blast, or I'll kick him on anything. It doesn't matter, and then he just does nothing. And if I kick him on Arcane, then I can freely sleepwalk him because he can't CS me then, you know? So, like, it's really annoying to play Arcane, I feel like. Frost Mage, not so much. Fire Mage is actually really good right now into Cleaves, in my opinion. I'm surprised people haven't tried to answer Demon Hunter Ret with it, but probably the problem is Demon Hunter and Ret does so much damage that you can actually just get one shot straight up raw out as a Frost Mage, or Fire Mage, sorry. But I will say, the Fire Mage build that leaves those little flame patches on the ground after you Flame Strike, and the Fire patches on the ground can proc Living Bomb, is an absolute nightmare if you're playing a pet class like Demonology Lock or Unholy DK, because anytime your pets are walking over it, so say it has a 5% chance to activate, but that applies to anything in it. So if you have 5 things in it, that means you have a 25% chance every single time that flame patch ticks that something is going to generate a living bomb. And so when that generates a living bomb, it explodes and then spreads that living bomb to everything else around it, and that's constantly proccing over and over again per flame patch. So you end up getting like stupid amount of living bombs versus pet classes. So I can only imagine how annoying it must be to play an Unholy DK and queue into a Fire Mage and just know you're going to lose the game 90% of the time because the Fire Mage will just do instantaneously like 3 million damage. It's absurd how much damage Fire Mage does into pet classes. And that alone, just for ladder play, I think will put it a step above Frost. I don't think it's amazing, again, and I think it gets countered really well. But it's just crazy versus certain classes. Like versus certain classes, it just dumpsters on everything so easily. It's crazy. It's wild. I've played into Nos playing Fire Mage Assassination Rogue numerous times, and there's numerous times where we're playing perfectly, but we just run out of cooldowns because they force so much stuff from us. And we don't even stack them. Like, we don't even stack cooldowns. It's just the amount of AoE damage they're doing as Assassination Rogue Fire Mage forces this cooldown and then that cooldown. And then within a minute and a half, we have no cooldowns left to respond to their go. And then they land one polymorph and like a cheap shot or a garrote on somebody, and they just die instantly from like half health. It's pretty disgusting. Fire Mage is pretty good with the right comp. It is also counterable, though. You could play better. Enhancement Shaman, it's okay. It's not amazing. It does decent damage. Shout out to Saul, though. Saul is crazy good at Enhance. Super good player. Also big damn. It's like all he plays. I think Enhance is like probably right under Demo Lock. There's a lot of things in B tier this time. I'm sorry, guys. But I just think everything is kind of like at this neutral point. There's really, like, this is kind of how it should be, though, in my opinion. I think there should be some classes that are just absurdly good, and some classes that are just, like, okay. And then there should be just, like, very minimal amount of classes that are just really bad. Shout out Augmentation. So, yeah, Enhance is decent. It has decent utility. Obviously, you have Grounding, you have Static Field, you have Lightning Lasso. You also have decent amount of range damage because you can, like, Primordial Wave into a Lightning Bolt, and that does, like, 300 to 400k. So they actually do decent like range damage, which is kind of nice too. Problem with Enhance is if you can force their shield wall, they could die really easily while the shield wall is on cooldown. So yeah, it's kind of hard. It's hard to force a shield wall though from them. So I think they're pretty good. I don't think they're amazing though, and I think it's fair to place them above Survival, but under classes like Demonology and Feral for sure. Elemental Shaman, our last class, is actually pretty good. I don't think it's that bad. I think Elemental Shaman does a lot of damage. You can do a lot of damage with Ele Shaman. I mean, your Lava Bursts right now should be hitting for anywhere from like 130 to 150k. And every single time you cast a Lava Burst, you can cast out like 2 to 3. You can get an Ascendance proc and cast out an extra one. Your Lava Burst do more damage while your Ascendance is active, just because it goes off of your crit strike. I think Ele actually, like, low key, is really good. I think it's honestly probably above maybe even Fire Mage. I think the Europeans are onto something here, ladies and gentlemen. I swear, I used to play Elemental Shaman, so it's not even like bias or anything. I think Elemental Shaman is really good. It's just nobody plays it. Like, literally no one plays this class. I swear on my life, I don't know why, but no one touches Shaman, let alone Elemental Shaman. It's like, there's like 3 people. It's like Kamalin, and then there's like a couple of people in Europe that touch it, but like outside of that, it's really not that played. And Elemental Shaman, Demon Hunter is really, really strong. Windwalker, Elemental Shaman, also really good. You could play Thundercleave, which is really good. There's just like a lot of comps that it actually plays pretty well with. You can play Rogue Elemental Shaman, like Outlaw Rogue Ellie Shaman. That's also really good. There's just like, there's a couple of comps that's really good. And Elemental Shaman itself is actually pretty tanky. So yeah, I think Elemental Shaman is definitely decent. I don't know why nobody plays it though. It's really good. I know a lot of people struggle versus like Holy Priestess Elemental Shaman because Holy Priest can spec double dispel. They can dispel a Flame Shock and then dispel another Flame Shock. You gotta wait for your Flame Shock to come off cooldown. It's really annoying. But once you get those Flame Shocks rolling and you get some of your damage going, it's like you just start pounding people. You know what I'm saying? You just start going crazy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, this class can pump. And its utility is really good too. Same utility as enhancement, but still it's really good. You got a range kick on a 12-second cooldown, which is nice. You have grounding totem. You got lightning lasso. You got static field, ladies and gentlemen. Thunderstorm up in this bitch. You got a shield wall. It's just absolutely insane what you can do on this class. So I give Elemental Shaman a try, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, it's pretty good. It's not amazing. It's not absurdly good. It's just decent. It's decent. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list video. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, comment down below that you enjoyed this, and I'll be posting more tier lists in the future. Also, feel free to check out my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/GrimlockMMO. I stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. So you might even see me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if this video goes out live fast enough. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon. Peace.